Seth, is this going to work? I'm supposed to have some slides. I don't even know if I need to say anything, do I? Everything has been said. No, what's really cool, what's very cool, this is a very strange experience, isn't it? Like, have you ever done this before? And it's quite dreamlike, like here, let's go to a place where you see all your former students and friends and relatives. And they love art. That's the thing, they all love art. And so, there's a lot of power in that, isn't there? Like, we have to take over the world, I think. I do have some slides. And actually, what I tried to do is put this presentation, I lost 10 minutes now because of that TV thing, right? What I have to do, I have a slide talk that'll be focusing a little bit on teaching, and then my son Jeff put together a video that has some archival stuff that we couldn't see that goes back in time or that shows me working on something in the past. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask myself, in your stead, 7 questions, and I'm going to answer the questions. If I can get this to work.
Turn it on.
How did you end up here? And that next slide can go too, I guess. If I can get it. This is a public publicity thing that Bethany did that was still there when I came as a 26-year-old. This was what they used to convince people to come to Bethany. And if you open it up, my wife Sherry is in the picture. And so is a close friend of hers who's in the audience. And between the two, they put in 78 years at part of the Bethany family, besides those years as college students, which that is kind of incredible, isn't it? Anyway, Sherry went to Bethany, and while she was there, someone said, "What are you studying?" She said, "I'm studying elementary ed." And they said, "Are you going to teach in the Christian day school?" And she said, I can't afford to. And the person said, "You can't afford not to." And then Paul Helland asked her to be put on a call list, if she would be willing to put on a call list. And while we were engaged, she was called to teach at Holy Cross in Madison, to teach 3rd and 4th grade. I was going to go to graduate school in Madison, and I also ended up teaching art at Holy Cross. I was terrible. After the first day, Mary Bourne scolded me. Silas Bourne was the principal. Mary was kind of the assistant. And she said, "The first lesson for teaching art is to clean the sink." So, I didn't know that. I didn't know that one. While we were at Holy Cross in Madison, the pastor was George Orbick, Reverend George Orbick, who was also the president of the Synod. He came to my art shows. So when after graduating, I went to Thiel College and worked there for a year. And then in the spring, after 1 year, Paul Helland called our house and talked to Sherry and said, "Would you like to come to Bethany and do an interview?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll think about it. I'll weigh the pluses and minuses." And so we had a long spring break. I came to Bethany. I interviewed with Paul Helland, and I thought, there's a really good choir here. And that's really one of the things I took away from that interview. I said, there aren't any easels, but there's a very good choir. I should have recognized something there. But, and I took the job. We took the job because it was, it's a joint, it's a joint decision always. There's another reason, though, why Sherry was at Bethany. If I can get this to work. Her mother went to Bethany. And like all Bethany students, she had a great sense of humor. So this is Virginia Loberg at Bethany, probably the late 40s. They still act like this. It's super cold. You take a toboggan and, hey, let's pretend it's summer. What was it like when you first came? That's what it says, isn't it? It was bleak. It was tough. There were no easels. The art room, it was a junior college. And so a junior college, we only have them for a couple semesters. Then they go off to their alma mater. So that made it harder, too. And we only had Old Main. There was only Old Main. There was a little library, Tigan Hall, in Old Main. And so I did a show. Sherry's in it, and our good friend Camilla Dashkin is in that show. And started to work with the program. The old library was where we started doing shows, and you can see we had to make do. We'd ask them to move the magazine so we can put up the artwork. I found this in a yearbook. So you can see the struggles I've had. If I look hard enough, I think I can still find these drawings. If you've ever seen my back office. But anyway, what's kind of fun about this is at least 3 out of these are still active artists. And so that's pretty cool. And one is a teacher, art teacher. And this was my first year. But the thing that's kind of fun about it, though, is, besides the drawings are ridiculous, is that they had a sense of humor about it, just like the preceding generations. And that's always made it fun. We went to Italy after the first year. When did it get better? As a young professor, what happened is you sort of dig in, and all of a sudden you have a family, and some of the other professors have families, and it becomes a literal Bethany family, and you're all kind of just working hard to make it go. But in the 80s, Marv Meyer was the president, and he was more of a visionary, and he met one of our alum, Marv Schwann, who was a billionaire, which helps. Seriously, in 1988, I believe, now I'll tell you my version of history, maybe you'll look it up and say, no, that isn't. But in 1988, he gave the college a check for $1 million. Here's a check. And he told Marv, and again, this is my version of history, he told Marv that I'll teach you how to ask for money. And they set their sights on 200 million rather than 100,000. And it was a Bethany Renaissance, really. This building was the first monument to that Bethany Renaissance, and it was amazing. It was awesome. And I did a dedication, I did a talk probably somewhat like this when we opened this building, and Marv Schwann was in the audience. And I always felt like he told Marv to give me whatever I want. It's just, I'm imagining that. Some of my colleagues would not, they'd say, you do get everything you want. But these two men really instrumental. I mean, I bought a lot of Schwann food just because I felt like, wow, this is such a good building. Oh, how did they invest in me? One of the things that happened while I was a young professor is they decided to have sabbaticals. It was unheard of in Bethany's history because, they don't give sabbaticals. Junior colleges, there's no money. So I was a third sabbatical. Arlene Hilding, Sig Lee, and then I was up for sabbatical. And it was really, again, Sherry that said, well, if you get the sabbatical, you can go. I'll stay home. So I went on sabbatical. I needed someone to travel with. And so I called on my cousin Pete. And travel and seeing art and experiencing it firsthand has always been kind of what I'm about. And so in 1987, to be able to take that trip, we went from Rome to London. We actually saw Lady Di in the distance, a little dot. And we were balancing on one foot on a fence in a crowd of people on Veterans Day. But it was her. This is Paestum, Italy. What I would do is direct the trip to follow. Okay, this is what we left behind. I had 3 children at the time. So Sherry, who's the hero here? The guy that went off with his cousin. But this is the family that I left, and it was hard. But I know you don't believe me. It was hard. It was really hard for me, but Then I got another sabbatical, and so this is a little bit on sabbaticals. So I was able to go again in '96, and where our children were at the time wasn't also convenient. So Sherry once again said, "Well, maybe Pete can go." So we started in Cairo. And Pete he's a great guy to travel with because he's a tireless art guy, as I am too. But he also likes Zorro. And so when we were up on these camels, he puts on the Zorro mask, and all the kids came running up and said, "Batman, Batman." It was a slum in Giza, and I thought it was my last day, It worked, though. It worked out. We survived. That trip ended in Madrid. Yeah, I flew home from Madrid. It did allow me a lot of experiences that broadened my own vision, that broadened my own approach to art, and that also enriched my art history. The third sabbatical came, and Sherry said, "It's time that I'm going along." And so Jenna was in high school at MVL, and our niece was at high school at East, so we took the girls with us. And we had an apartment in Florence. Of course, why wouldn't you? I love this picture because she was 17 this is her birthday, her 17th birthday, Jenna. And it just has that kind of joy of, travel and discovery, of youth. And she's at the top of the Duomo in Florence. I think I'm the only faculty member to get 4 sabbaticals. Though I'm not bragging. 4. Sorry, it gets away from me sometime, But the last sabbatical, Sherry and I had an apartment in Rome. And what we were going to do is make a calendar for Jenna of selfies, of course. She didn't want that. And we did meet up with Jeff and Julia, our 2 other children, in Greece, in case you were feeling sorry for them, because Jenna got to go to Florence. How else was my own visual enrichment ensured? The Synod commissioned me to do paintings for the 75th anniversary. I did 9 paintings of the history and mission of the Synod. So I did appreciate that. I was also commissioned to do an altarpiece. If I can get the slide projector to work. we had a new chapel, and I have some archival footage in the video that we'll show in a minute, but I did chapel talk just yesterday too, which is always hard. But I got the commission to do chapel and to do an altarpiece for chapel, and it was kind of a dream, and I really felt like, wow, I'll do this. This is kind of like the heart of the ELS. Other churches will see this, and then they'll commission me to do more and more and more. Didn't work. But I'm really thankful that I was able to do it. And if you ever do go to Christmas at Bethany, they open it during the singing. It's quite spectacular in a medieval kind of way. The new building, the new science building then came up, and Marv Meyer was with me on an Italy trip. And we were in the Sistine Chapel, and I said, Marv, do you think it would be good if Bethany had their own fresco? Marv isn't here, right? So I got a commission to do fresco. I didn't know how to do fresco. I didn't realize how hard it was. I probably wouldn't have done it. I probably just said, no, that's the wrong thing. So I was able to get faculty development funds to go to Italy to study fresco, to learn how to make it. And what I did is I asked one of the teachers, I said, if I get a commission, would you ever come to Bethany and help me? Knowing that I had it already, of course, in my back pocket. And he said, if you get a commission, I'll come. So Jimmy Shagru was the guy, and he came to Bethany and helped. He was awesome. He was great. But to do a fresco was a great artistic experience. I'm still friends with the teachers. I still keep in touch. And it's very difficult. And it's still up. It's across the street. Faculty development funds were another way that Bethany invested in their faculty at the time. And so some people say, well, I had my share, let's say. I had my share of faculty development funds. And so what I would do, of course, because I like to travel, I would apply for funding to go to various art places and Lutheran places. It's Wittenberg. This was the school where I learned how to fresco. It was like a dungeon. It was full of bats and snakes, and it was really fun. It was like being on a reality show, seriously. I thought, who's going to get bounced off the island now? It was in a palazzo in an Etruscan city outside of Rome. It was really cool, but there were snakes and bats. Oh, so this leads to student travel. Because I had done this travel, because they had supported it, they also supported me taking students to New York City and taking students to Italy. And so that is why a lot of you stood up, I think, because we were able to go places and see things and broaden your horizons and see art firsthand. And you became a lifelong member of the Bukowski Art Army, which is cool. It's super cool. Sometimes when you teach at a small college in a small city in southern Minnesota, you do kind of wonder, like, how do you survive? Well, if you build in a trip to New York City as an artist, that really helps. And if you build in a trip to Italy, that helps too. So what really starts to happen is your classroom is expanded. It's not just the YFAC drawing room. It's the Orangerie in Paris, where Jesse Honnercook is having his epiphany. He's liking the Monet painting, let's say. That was really a great opportunity for me, too, because to teach or to lecture on location is... I used to give extra credit if you could find my cousin Pete in any other slides on the midterms or finals, but there's a few other people in here you might recognize. I can't show everyone. I can only show a few. But there's a few more of you. If you're not in this slideshow, you should be in the video. Now, I don't mean to make fun of this group, but I was gonna. Okay, let's say you're in charge, and let's say if you lead this group, you can go to Venice. Now make sure they don't get hurt, make sure they don't get drunk, make sure they don't get lost, make sure they're inspired by all the art. Would you do it? I know the answer. But I really do love art, and I do feel like this is important. But when you look at a group and it's like, really, you had to lead that group through, sometimes the weather isn't good. Sometimes it's like not sunny Italy. Sometimes it's like freezing cold, sleeting Italy. But they have such good attitudes. But when I look at a group shot like this, I do feel that way. It's like, who would do this? Oh, I got to go back to that on that one. Can I get it? I'm doing this for the benefit of some people that traveled. It's part of the Art Army. The Art Army was actually instituted by Luke Ulrich in 2003, if you want to know the truth. And the buttons came later, and if any of you deserve a button, if you got shorted on your Art Army button, I do have some with me. Another way that college supported the art culture was art camp, and for 22 years I led an art camp in the summer, 5th through 8th, 9th through 12, drawing, painting, cartooning, art history, Oreos, and milk. There's still a few people here that were in my art camp that are still at Bethany today. Proud members of the Young Michelangelo Art Camp. It was kind of interesting because we would have a big art show at the end of the 2 weeks, and the art show would dissolve it by the end because everyone would come and take their drawings and leave. So the gallery was empty at the end. What are some of the other, what does that say? A couple things I'm involved in that I need to plug and that are really important that have expanded Bethany's outlook. When I first came, Bethany really looked, well, I know I wasn't meaning to make fun, but when I first came, they thought diversity was allowing German descent people to teach at Bethany along with the Norwegians. That's what they thought diversity meant. And so being Polish, ex-Catholic, I was really welcomed. But since then, in the last 10 years, we have the Christ and Media Institute run by Tom Custer, who is another visionary, total visionary. And it's spreading the gospel through digital media, and I'm on the board. And we have a spring conference coming up where we're doing virtual reality. We're trying to get high schools to participate, and we're doing a conference at Bethany. So we do online conferences about how to share the gospel in digital media. And I'm not really a big digital guy, but I like what Andy said about trying to fight vulgarity. I like that idea. And so I'm on that board, and I do enjoy it. It's amazing what they can do. It's putting translators in with other people that need the Bible in another language, or it was doing motion graphics for a mission work in Pakistan. I mean, it's really quite amazing, and we're an advisory board, so we do online conferences as well as in person. So if you see those, participate. Here's the one coming up. So if you go to the Bethany website, Christ and Media Institute, it's an amazing endeavor. It's all the brainchild of Tom Custer, emeritus professor in communications, but a great visionary. Another thing I'm involved with that is really expanding the visual culture at Bethany is the Speechless Film Festival. And the Speechless Film Festival is an international festival where we judge and award films from all over the world. And we show them at a venue at the Civic Center downtown. And so it's really cool because it's global. And you have artists from all over the world sending their movies to Bethany to inspire us or to show us their creativity. And an actual literal benefit of this, it happened to be a Polish filmmaker. I was talking to him at an after gathering, and he said, because Bethany chose my film, the Polish government will support my filmmaking with grants. And I thought, that's amazing. Because we did that, he can become a professional filmmaker. So how many reasons do we need to continue? But it's in the 8th year, and the dates are right there. If you check it online, it's in Mankato on those dates. It may be a blizzard that day. But the two people who really do a lot of this is Kurt Paulson and Amanda Quist. And the energy they put into it and the drive is really quite amazing. I love being involved because I'm a content judge. So I watch like all the movies to make I don't know why I do it. It's a lot of time, It's like, if you ever watch avant-garde or art house films for hours and hours and hours, it kind of scrambles your brain a little bit. But, every time I open a film, I'm excited because it might be something spectacular. And I've really enjoyed working with the film festival, and so I urge you to participate if possible. We usually give passes away if you hang around Kurt Paulson. Oh, this is already covered. The most fun thing I do is play in this band called Midlife Crisis. And I did start it at 50. I thought, well, it's time to start a rock band. This is our opening night at the Lab is a coffee shop at Bethany. That was our audience the opening night. So it was something. It was big. Yeah, well, you can see this is intensity. We did play on the theater here, so that was also we've been playing ever since. So we've been together longer than the Beatles. If you need a reference, the Midlife Crisis, Beatles, we beat them. All the original members aren't still in the band. Oops. But the spirit is there, and we're hoping to do a concert in the spring. Maybe you'll find out about it. We're looking for a rooftop, though. We want to do a rooftop concert and invite all the people that played with us in the past over the 15 years to join us for that concert. And now, if we can roll that film that I mentioned. think as an artist, you're aware of time, more so as you get older. And time slipping away. You always hear things like, well, Michelangelo had 24 hours in a day too. But the circumstances around creativity are vastly different depending on where you live and what community you're in and what are the artistic demands of the community, or who cares. So those kind of things can force a little bit of panic. Those 24 hours don't seem very long. And you don't know how Michelangelo did it.
The idea of some sort of significant altar painting was sort of a unanimous thing from the get-go. Everybody was open to the idea. And of course, Bill at that point had done the altar painting in Grace Church in Madison. And so we were well aware of the sympathies and his style and all that sort of stuff.
The model for Jesus was a local man who came to an art show at Bethany. And he looked like that. He had long hair and a goatee, and he had about the right physique that I thought would work. And I asked him to pose as Jesus, and it turned out that he was a 33-year-old carpenter. For this scene, I wanted to show John taking care of Mary at the foot of the cross, and had Andrew Quist and my wife Sherry posing. And it's almost, well, obviously it is like being a director. You're telling the actors what you need them to do, setting up the lighting and calling for action, and then hoping that you get what you need from that session. Shooting photos, trying to shoot details. You never quite know how it's all going to come together. And photographs aren't the easiest to work from. It's my hope that the painting will offer some respite from your worries and will enhance your worship. And it was a privilege for me to work with these many people at Bethany to make this possible.
Well, it's taken more than a year to get this far, but a local artist is one step closer to completing a masterpiece. 5 life-size paintings depicting the life of Christ will be the centerpiece of Bethany Lutheran College's new chapel. News 12's Tom Overly talked with the artist to find out what it takes to complete a masterpiece.
It's tough work competing against the masters like Rubens or Rembrandt, but Bill Bukowski hopes his artistic interpretation of Christ's life will rival the greats.
You know, you hate to use the word masterpiece, but it's kind of one of those things where you're trying for it. You know, this is my chance. It has to be good. People are going to see it every day.
Bukowski's been developing the series of 5 life-size paintings for more than a year. They'll be the centerpiece of Bethany Lutheran College's new chapel, now under construction. Here's a drawing of what the final piece will eventually look like.
This is the altar piece when it's open, showing, it's not quite the nativity, it's more the flight into Egypt, but it shows Christ as a baby. And then the death on the cross is the central panel, the resurrection, of course, the culmination. Then these panels will close, and it will show the scene at Bethany, Christ preaching at Bethany to Mary and Martha.
And then I did this, painted that color and this color.
Jeff Bukowski is carrying on a Renaissance tradition when young men would work as an apprentice under great artists. So what's it like painting for Dad?
Well, it's fun, and it's an honor.
Why is that?
Well, because this painting will be in Bethany for a long time, and I get to help paint on it.
I feel like I've been trained all along for this painting. I think I can do it.
In Mankato, Tom Overly, News 12.
Bukowski says he hopes to finish the paintings by next spring. That, by the way, is when the new Bethany Chapel is slated to be completed.
Today is a dedication day that far surpasses all the rest. For today, as it were, we dedicate the crown jewel of our campus. Then you come into the spacious narthex and you look down the aisle and you see the striking, vivid paintings above the altar. Your eyes are drawn immediately to them and you are reminded of Bethany's motto, one thing is needful, namely the gospel of our Savior.
I think the real fruits of your labor is the enjoyment of creation. Painting is in itself sheer fun.
It's taken years for the project to come together, but finally a Mankato man is fulfilling his dream. He's turning a pile of plaster into a modern-day masterpiece. News 12's Alan Sommerfeld explains.
Bill Bukowski is living his dream.
I teach art history and I've studied fresco extensively, and when I heard of a new building going up in 1997, I thought this might be an opportunity to paint a fresco.
He and an artist from Los Angeles are taking 6,000 pounds of plaster and an 11 by 18 foot section of wall in the new Math and Science building in Bethany Lutheran College and creating a modern day masterpiece.
When I had the idea to do a fresco, then I went to the building committee and I said, how would you like a fresco that would substantiate Bethany's belief in a building of math and science, a belief in creation.
4 scenes are coming to life on the wet plaster, representing God, man, and high-tech science.
So when you put it on, it looks one color. Then you can see it as it dries, it becomes another color.
But the beauty hasn't come without a little pain. Bill is on day number 8, working 12 to 14 hours each time, but all of that seems to fall by the wayside as the art comes to life.
I am thrilled to have the opportunity to be able to do a painting like this that will be really the centerpiece of this building and an important part of campus for many years. I mean, we're hoping it's going to last 500 years.
But for now, time and a little patience are Bill's true challenges. In Mankato, Alan Sommerfeld, News 12.
Anyone that arrives on Bethany's campus and has an opportunity to visit the science building will really be delighted with the fresco that he has created in the building. The belief that we have at this institution that God created the heavens and the earth, and clearly demonstrates that to the public as they enter the Hall of Science and Mathematics. So for us, it's a real statement of our faith. And for Professor Bukowski, it's a real statement of his quality of art and his ability to create a fresco. And we're thrilled and pleased to have it on our campus. And I know that it'll be here for one long time to continue to depict of who we are as an institution.
For the past 6 years, I've been coming to the park to paint. I think it makes you aware of the shortness of life, just like the shortness of the peak of the garden. It's about 10 days, and they start to die. It has given me inspiration, and I look at the garden almost like a metaphor for paradise, or the search for paradise. To study the light falling over the shapes gives me a chance to work somewhat abstractly And yet, the average person can look at it and see a flower garden. If they want to look at it in a different way, they might see more. I'm shooting this video because this is the way I think communication, this is the direction that communication is going. Where you look at 30-second sound bites of different ideas and bits and pieces from around the world. So here you can see a painting. It's in Mankato. It's from a park called Sibley Park. It's been quite a challenge, but it's also very rewarding because you get to work on a heroic scale. And the idea is that it would be a place to contemplate nature and to think about light and flowers and take a rest from the day, where it's always morning and it's always summer. And it's always about 8:45 in the morning. The garden is already peaking. Some of the blossoms are dying. The color is fading, and several beautiful sections were taken out last night by a storm. I have to work faster.
The city of Mankato is looking for ways to beautify and make the city center more vibrant.
We told you about the traffic signal cabinet mural project last month, and now artists are busy at work. News 12's Brittany Larson introduces us to a local artist sharing his talent for all to see.
I think it's been coming along fine. I'm really happy with it at this point.
Bill Bukowski is an art professor at Bethany Lutheran College. Even with 40 years of experience, this project is very different than what he's used to.
It is clearly the most unique thing I've ever painted. Normally I paint on canvas or wood.
Providing commuters waiting at the traffic light a 30-second escape to a beautiful summer scene in Sibley Park.
I'm able to share this gift that I have with the city, and people immediately respond. They're immediately beeping and waving and giving me the thumbs up and yelling positive things.
City Art Mankato issued a call for artists earlier this summer. They decided to designate 10 traffic boxes this year to decorate downtown Mankato.
The art that you're going to see out on the street is really high quality public art for us to enjoy for years to come.
The actual act of painting is invigorating and exciting, and even after 8 hours I really am not tired of painting.
Adding his personal touch with his paintbrush to enhance the appearance of the city center.
But a beautiful day with beautiful light marks one of the most enjoyable experiences one can have. one of the interesting things that happens is people do come around and they'll say something like, "It's such a gift." And I do appreciate that. And I think about it.
We've made it to Florence, and we're standing in front of Brunelleschi's dome right now.